to open session and start with a roll call.
Here.
Present.
Here.
Present.
First, we have public comment. Members of the public who wish to speak to the board should complete a request card prior to the start of the meeting. This section of the meeting will be reserved for comments from the public. All comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Criticism of individuals is not in order. And we have one public comment from Steve Lundeen about HMS band room.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm here this evening as a parent of an HMS band student and a member of the 428 band staff. There is an informational proposal before the board tonight that asks the board to consider spending $64,000 to replace the floor in the HMS band room to create the option for a second lunchroom. I do not mean to diminish the space needs of the growing population, but this proposal does not include any of the costs associated with moving the band to another space, nor does it take into account any of the dollars spent by the District 428 music budget within the last 2 years to enhance the performance of the band. I've been informed that there is a future meeting scheduled to discuss if there is any viability for moving the band to another location between various HMS stakeholders. That said, the board needs to be aware that tonight's proposal has many unanswered questions, and before considering whether to support it in the future, the board should ensure that these questions have been answered. Some of these include where would the band go, how much would it cost to build, renovate, or repurpose the space to fit that curriculum, would the band be displaced from yet another program, if so, what is the cost associated with that program in that space, who will be responsible for these costs, what space will I truly understand the challenges with confronting some of these concerns, but this proposal is highly incomplete, and I'm just here to ensure the board is aware of this and answer my questions going forward.
Thank you.
Can I ask you to email that to the board?
This?
Yeah, thank you. I
Yep,
appreciate
thank
it.
you.
And going on to board correspondence, I will say that Mary Beth Knock, a band teacher here, also sent me an email late this afternoon, and I can forward that out and share it as well with very similar sentiments. Any other board?
Oh, you're going to read it?
No. I mean, do you want me to read it out loud?
Well, it's board correspondence, right?
Yeah, I can read it. That's fine.
Thank you.
It says, "Hi Samantha, it came to our attention today that the facilities department has plans to propose repurposing the band room for eating space. We weren't notified about this prior to finding it on the agenda, and frustration aside, we are concerned that the department does not have a plan for where to relocate the band room. We need a space that is large, acoustically safe, secure, has a ton of storage space, and can facilitate 6 periods of instruction per day, including a small space for intervention during large group instruction, independently of the current choir and orchestra rooms. That space does not exist in HMS outside of our room unless they are going to build a new one from scratch. If you are able to read this email prior to the meeting tonight, we would appreciate your advocacy for clarifying these extremely important missing details. Your role as a band parent on the board is greatly appreciated. Thanks in advance for your support, Mary Beth."
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'll
for-
still send it.
Yeah. So Thank you.
Any other board correspondence or, committee reports?
Back in December, I attended a social justice committee meeting, also along with Chance, our student board member at the high school. We had our first student advisory council meeting, so that was exciting to meet some of the students who are interested in getting involved with that. We're looking forward to the semester and just what that group will do. I went to a virtual PTO meeting at Founders last week, and that's what I've been up to.
Sarah Moses and I had FFAC recently, and that advisory committee is doing their due diligence to make sure that we're making the right moves in regards to space and buildings, and so hopefully we will have a recommendation from that group pretty soon regarding NIU.
I'd just like to add that I appreciate staff coming forward to notify the board of issues like the band department has come forward tonight, because we don't always know about these issues, and the more that you come forward and share what's happening in buildings and what your needs are, the more we can advocate for you.
Any other correspondence or committee reports? All right. Student board member correspondence, Chance is not here, so we will hopefully touch base with them next time. Subject D, acceptance of gifts and donations, and we are recognizing, the Board of Education accepts with gratitude the donation of $500 from State Farm. Scott Zymet, I'm sorry if I did not pronounce your name correctly, for DHS MTSS. The Board of Education accepts with gratitude the donation of $500 from Carrie Odom, Spirit Realty, doing business as Weichert Realtors Signature Professionals, $500 to DHS MTSS. And the Board of Education accepts with gratitude the donation of $500 from Daniel and Teresa Hyatt for the wrestling program. Thank you so much for those donations.
Thank you.
Next up is the consent agenda. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items A through H as attached. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call, please. Yes.
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 Under old business, we have subject A, resolution abating the working cash fund of the district, and this is an action item. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution abating the working cash fund of Community Unit School District Number 428, DeKalb County, Illinois, in the amount of $354,261. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Yes. Subject B is the resolution abating a portion of the taxes heretofore levied for the year 2022 to pay debt service on certain outstanding bonds of the district for purposes of including the property tax relief grant amount in the district's evidence-based funding minimum. And this is an action item brought to us by Cindy Carpenter and Armir Doka. It is recommended that the Board of Education adopt the resolution abating a portion of the taxes heretofore levied for the year 2022 to pay debt service on certain outstanding bonds of Community Unit School District Number 428, DeKalb County, Illinois, for purposes of including the property tax relief grant amount in the district's evidence-based funding minimum. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 C, the 2023 National American Choral Directors Association Conference, and this is an action item brought to us by Donna Larson, that the Board of Education approve the out-of-state travel for the 11 music students from Clinton Rosette Middle School and DeKalb High School to participate in the 2023 National American Chorale Directors Association Conference. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Subject D is the DeKalb High School new course AP Physics 1, and this is an action item that was brought to us by Sarah Montgomery, that the Board of Education approve the DHS AP Physics 1 new course. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Okay. Subject E is the staffing request 1.0 FTE bilingual building substitute, action item brought by Billy Huermo and Deetra Salas. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the addition of a 1.0 FTE bilingual building substitute to share between Cortland, Founders, and Littlejohn Elementary Schools. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 And then next is the Press Plus issue 110 policy updates. And this is an action item, but before we approve it, right, Jackie? There are two questions that we have to answer. It was a pretty thick packet of updates. The first question is, I think it's actually from this, so it's in the 7.285 Anaphylaxis Prevention, Response, and Management Program update.
7.25, you said?
Yes, 7.285. And our question, we have to answer this question: has the board adopted the school district supply of undesignated epinephrine injectors, subhead in policy 7-270, administering medicine to students?
Excuse me.
And the we, as from what I understand,
What page is it, Sam? I'm sorry.
sorry, she pulled it out and
That's okay.
highlighted it for me.
Just say 700 and what, or 7?
7.285.
Okay.
It's, it's down a little bit.
It's page 110.
Thank you.
They're not.
All right, so it is our understanding that we have not adopted that, right? I don't want to get this wrong. Kyle, please help us. Yes. So we would,
We have not adopted the Anaphylaxis Prevention, Response, and Management Program?
no, we have that. We haven't adopted the school district supply of undesignated epinephrine injectors specifically.
Okay, and that is,
Subhead in policy 7270.
what page is that on?
That's on the, so on page 110 is the rewritten of that, but we don't have it, so my understanding is that we would say no, and then this will not be included then in our policy.
Okay, why wouldn't we include it?
Can you,
What does it do specifically? Like, are we talking about like epinephrine supply for kids? Like,
So in the policy of administering medicine to students, it covers a few different areas: undesignated asthma medication, undesignated opioid antagonists, and a few others, administration of medical cannabis. It doesn't look like the board in the past has looked specifically at that particular subsection of that policy. I think it's something that we can further explore moving forward, but as it currently stands right now, it is not existing in our board policy.
so to say yes, so we would need to come back and adopt this as a policy, and then we could have it would be updated at that
Correct,
point.
yep. And then we're happy to kind of look into that more if the board would like.
So is the board interested in hearing more about whether we want to adopt or not adopt that policy?
yeah, I'm just reading it. So the superintendent or designee shall develop and implement an anaphylaxis prevention, response, and management program for the prevention and treatment of anaphylaxis that fully implements Illinois State Board of Education model policy required by the school code that A, relates to the care and response to a person who's having an anaphylactic reaction, addresses the use of epinephrine in school setting, provides full food allergy prevention of allergen exposure plan, and aligns with 105 Illinois CS 5-2020-30 and 23 Illinois Administrative Code. So this ensures staff members receive appropriate training, including an in-service training program for staff who work with students that is conducted by a person with expertise in anaphylactic reactions and management, and training required by law for those staff members acting as trained personnel, implements and maintains a supply of undesignated epinephrine in the name of the district and in accordance with policy 270, administering medications to students, follows and references the applicable best practices staff to the district's needs and Center for Disease Control and Prevention's voluntary guidelines for managing food allergies in schools and early care and education programs in the National Association of School Nurses, Allergies, and Anaphylaxis Resources checklist, provides annual notice to parents and guardians of all students to make them aware of this policy, complies with state and federal law, and is in alignment with board policies. So that's what we want to adopt.
So we have a lot of those policies under there. This one's specific to whether or not we maintain undesignated epinephrine injectors. So if I understand
Oh.
correctly, we have epinephrine injectors for students that already have identified allergies, but we don't maintain an
Extra.
extra one for
Oh.
undesignated for a student. So we
Okay.
do all of the other things that we have to, the food.
Well, we should probably do that.
So we're in, I think,
Or-
I'm interested in hearing more about if this is something we should adopt, right? That's what you're suggesting. That
Yeah,
as
I guess
well.
I'm just not clear which one, because I just read all that. But that's
Yeah,
not-
it's just that very small, specific part of the
This policy.
it's of the 7:270.
Where it's pink and green?
Yes, the pink
So
is,
where
so
it
the
says
Press
pursuant-
Plus is
You want to just read it? What you're looking at? I just don't know what you're.
on page 110. So the document status draft update rewritten for the 7:285, that's what you're looking at, right?
Yeah, I'm on 110.
So we don't currently have this in our policy
The whole thing that
manual.
I just read.
Well, specifically to, it's specific, what we don't have is specific to the
Right.
district supply of undesignated epinephrine
Okay.
injectors. So,
Is there anything contraindicated for us having that? Is there any negatives to that? Or, I mean,
Honestly, I'd have to look into it a little bit further. Deidre and I were just talking a little bit, and she feels that at one point in time it was consideration, but it might have been cost prohibitive at the time, just given the cost of the medicine. So I would have to look into it a little bit more now. I do know we do the training, like the staff training part of it. It's really just to have, again, that kind of supply for students that aren't necessarily identified yet.
okay. So if we had a child going to anaphylactic shock, we would have extra epinephrine to save their life.
Because at one time, it was the issue with the price and then the availability of it. But then you said, was there any concern? It's just that they expired. So they may expire and not have gotten used in that period, in that window of time.
Well-
so I think we answer no currently, but it sounds like we have consensus to explore that. Right?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. So, and then the next one that we have to answer a question for specifically is this is for, let me find which one it is for. It's for the 5:250 leaves of absence, which will be on page, you find it before me. 55, thank you.
Thank
you, Cindy.
Thank you. So this is updating leaves of absence specifically around COVID-19. This is what we're looking at right now. And so we need to answer the question, does the board require fully vaccinated employees to participate in a district COVID-19 testing program? And our answer should be no. We do not. Is everyone okay with that answer?
Yes.
Okay. So then, with that, this is the second reading of all of these updates, and it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the Press Plus issue 110 policy updates with the answers given about these two specific updates. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 All right. Thank you. I know that was a huge packet of updates. Subject G, update to the superintendent goals 2022-2023 amendment to the contract, and this is, information and action, I guess. We had it as information last time. I did check the language to be added with our attorney that does our Amy Delaney. And so she has approved the addition of the language. It really is just says, just to pinpoint it. Under the culture and climate aligned goal, it says, this is Minerva's voice, I commit to the Insight X process, survey/feedback, and to show quality improvement at the recommended standard between the fall and spring Insight X implementation of the survey. And then Amy suggested adding C, attached recommended standards resulting from the completed survey, which are incorporated herein. And at the end of the document are the 4 overall and specific growth metrics that Mr. Black recommended that we spoke about and discussed at our last meeting. Are there any questions?
So, these are the same, this is all the same,
Yep, it's the same exact that he went through.
and we're not voting on all of her goals, that's already happened.
Right,
voting
we're
on this
just,
addendum.
we're just approving, we're approving the updated, that it's being updated with the actual growth metrics.
And we're doing 5%, 5%.
Yes.
Increases, 3 or more dimensions. So it's, you wanna read them, Sam, or?
The specific, Human X Insight X overall and specific growth metrics,
Just the,
the updated.
yeah, for the public.
So the first one, there's 4 growth metrics, and the first one is to increase the district dream box by 5% points. The second is to increase 3 more dimensions at the district level to strength level, which is above 4.0. The third is increase 3 targeted dimensions at the district level by at least 0.1 at overall mean level. The 3 that will be most impactful and relevant at this baseline stage would be relationships, talent and fit, and career development. And number 4 is to increase 3 targeted dimensions at the admin level to at least the target growth level noted below. The 3 that will be most impactful and relevant at this baseline stage would be relationships, talent and fit, and communications. There are some images that are part of this document that you can see on the board docs. And for a full explanation of what this really is, Mr. Black came to the board and did an overall presentation, I want to say in November, one of our November meetings. You can find it on board docs or on YouTube, potentially. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Yes.
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 Thank you. Next is 7, new business administration. Subject A is the DHS Student Council NCD overnight extravaganza. And this is brought to us by Donna Larson.
Good evening, everyone. So, City Council has been invited from the Northern Central District to go and attend for leadership capacity, to share ideas with different advisors, also just different ways that they connect to different students and bring it back to the town. So this year, they're hosting it in Gurnee and are asking if they can bring their 12 advisors currently to spend the night, March 3rd to the 4th, to participate in this.
And you have it on for action tonight. They need to
Correct.
let them know.
Yes, there was a timeline that it needs to be submitted if we are going to be in attendance, I believe the 23rd. So I appreciate that.
Okay, any questions for Donna? Okay, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the DHS Student Council to travel to Gurnee, Illinois to stay at Great Wolf Lodge to participate in the NCD Overnight Extravaganza on March 3rd through the 4th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Subject B is the Leading for Equity Institute, February 23rd through the 22nd, 2023, and this is informational by Amana Quinette Parker.
Good evening. Several members of our district Social Justice Leadership Committee has been invited to attend the 21st Leading for Equity Institute. It's being hosted in Pacific Grove, California, dates February 23rd through the 26th of this school year. 6 to 7 teachers and administrators will go to this team institute to engage in learning about purposeful leadership activities and to bring our own assessment of how we are trying to address our equity challenges and to receive information and guidance from national experts in this area. Currently, we have allotted some funds in our grant. So we had a certain amount of funds set aside that we were denied another opportunity. And this place invited us to come. And so all costs associated with this will be covered in the grant that we've already acquired, and we would actually lose the grant funds if we don't use it for professional development. It's specifically tied to our priorities, our strategic priorities 4 and 2, and as well as it supports our first goal in our diversity plan. Our first strategy in our diversity plan said that we would provide targeted professional development for our leadership team. That is why we are asking so late in the game because we were not notified that we were invited until December 22nd. And as you know, we did not have a school board meeting before that.
Any questions?
So when, I guess when we have something like this, if we could have just the, like an attachment in the agenda, whatever, like their website or their, whatever the program is, just so that we can look at it and see what's all offered to help us understand what it is even more. I'm just Googling Equity First Institute.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in California, you said?
Yes, Pacific Grove, California.
Also, just more information about it so that we get a better sense of what it is.
You have it on for information. You'll have enough time if we bring it.
So our concern is that with the price of airfare, that it will take more money out of the grant than we want to if we wait longer. But this was our method, so I just put it on for information.
Well, and then there is what is the price of it?
It's $2,300 per person,
And how many people?
6 to 7 people.
Are there any other questions? Is anybody willing to entertain moving this to action so that they can secure flights?
I am.
I guess, if we can have all that information, like the cost and more, just more information, because I mean, this is like just a request that we approve it, but, and I hear what you're saying, you're telling us about it, but there's nothing really for us to look at, or there's no cost.
I had an opportunity to Google it before the meeting, and I feel comfortable approving it.
Well, that's good. I still think we need to make sure that stuff's included, though, on the agenda for everyone, for the public and board members to look at.
Just so you know, we did inquire, but they're holding things kind of close because I don't know, they're holding some things kind of close. They communicated with me, but did not actually allow me to go into the site to see things.
Do we have, so I guess, do we have consensus to move it to action?
It's a yes for me.
And when is it? It's February 23rd
February
or 26th.
23rd or 26th.
I also am comfortable moving it to action.
And then when, oh, so you'd have to, so it's the 17th. When's our next board meeting?
The 6th.
Not till the-
7th, February 7th.
Yeah, not till February 7th.
So it's 13,800. And what grant is it out of? Okay, so it's Title II.
Thank you.
And then we lose this funding, or you were saying we don't want to take too
So
much, or?
we had it earmarked for someone else, for another professional development. That professional development is not happening. And
Okay.
we were hoping to get invited to something else for the leadership team. We did not get invited to that. So this is available, and it's something that will allow us to be able to support our goals, listening and diversity.
We're doing, you guys want to move it to action?
That's what we're asking. We have 2 people that are okay with that.
I mean, I would just say in the future, I would prefer that we have more information, we have other information in front of us, especially if we're gonna get asked to move it to action. Because then we're just transparent with the public, and then we have all the information we need to make a decision.
I agree.
Yeah, either way,
I
Where-
think we vote on it tonight if they have to get airfare and travel squared away.
yeah, because otherwise we're here until the 7th.
They're down, yeah, then they're the 8th, and you're 2 weeks out, and you're paying probably potentially higher rates,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Or not getting on flights, or, you know.
So I think, I'm going to make a motion to move subject B, Leading for Equity Institute, February 23rd to the 26th, 2023, from information to action. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, I guess I moved. Anyways, roll call for that.
So who am I doing? Ari and then Amanda?
Yeah, that's fine.
Ariel Owen,
Yes.
Amanda Hennis,
Yes.
Samantha Davis,
Yes.
Sarah Mosley.
Yeah,
And then we're going to, it's recommended that the Board of Education approve the Leading for Equity, or the out-of-state travel for staff to attend the Leading for Equity Institute, February 23rd through the 26th, 2023. Is there a motion on that one?
So moved.
Second. I'll second. Roll call, please.
Amanda Hennis,
Yes.
Samantha Davis,
Yes.
Sarah Mosley,
yes.
Ariel Owen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, who's all going?
We have one person that is looking for family outing, but we have 2 teachers going, and you want specific names?
No, I mean, you could give me general, that's okay.
Yeah, 2 teachers and a principal and the rest of district administration. We do have representation from elementary, middle school, and high school as well.
All right, thank you.
Subject C is the district request to bid, build out projects, and this is informational. Tammy Carson.
Thank you. What I brought forth tonight is a request to bid as an informational item. Last month, 5 principals approached me in regards to concerns of space for the next school year and looking at opportunities to split space that we currently have in the district. And so I asked our architect to put some preliminary budget numbers together because we are on a crunch in regards to getting things out to bid, getting real numbers and getting them back for consideration for summer 2023. What I brought forth are the areas that have been brought to me by those administration, and in what we'd be looking at with the bid packages we've putting together, there are some higher priority items that we would break out, so we would have the opportunity to approve some and not necessarily all of these at the bid results that we receive. The bid results would be coming in somewhere in the month of April, and then we can consider these for summer 2023.
And this is the one that includes the band room?
It does.
Okay, and what's going on with that? Because we're hearing from that department that they are concerned.
What I can speak of is that the question to bring this forth and get it on to a plan to get the bid out and get numbers was brought to me by Huntley administration. What specifically those plans are in regards to potential scheduling changes or other things regarding the program, I don't have all of those details. I'm just bringing this forth so that we can get some preliminary numbers so all of those can be considered in regards to potential changes that could be discussed.
What I can add to that is that currently during lunch, half the students during the lunch period are in the lunchroom, the other half are in the auditorium. And so the auditorium is being a little bit abused, right? And it's taking quite a hit and is in need of repair. And so that we can move them out of the auditorium and move them into a space that's more conducive for lunch is what we're asking, which is what the school administrator is proposing. And so that's the space that would fit for that purpose. I understand from having spoken to the principal this evening that she is meeting again with at the school level to talk about what that might look like. But the reason that the school administration is looking at it is for the purpose of removing half the students out of the auditorium during lunch.
So we're considering moving students into the band space instead of the auditorium. And then how does that compromise band? Because we heard tonight that they don't have any other place. They have 6 periods that they need to accommodate. So, and then they also said that there were no communications with them. So I'm curious about how that plays out.
So I won't speak for Tammy, but that I know is that an email was sent to principals asking them to share what their request was, to double check that the request was appropriate and that they were going to be taking the lead in having conversations with staff in the building. How and who was left up to them to decide what that looked like. Apparently, there might have been a miscommunication or misunderstanding or, I'm not sure what happened. But as of this evening, conversations did happen. I know that they are having a conversation tomorrow to further discuss it. But the principal did have suggestions for where that could happen, where the group of courses could occur that might take them away from that room.
Okay, where band could happen, not where lunch could happen.
I believe where band would happen.
So I guess because when we heard from the band department or the music department that they were saying that there really is no other space that could happen.
I'm not familiar with what the schedule will be for next year or what that might look like. So tomorrow's conversation will be more conducive to what that might look like. I'm not sure what that space is here.
Because I am really hesitant to move forward with any type of approval for, replacing flooring in a band room to create a second lunchroom. I think probably we need to figure out considerations for lunch spaces versus trying to, disrupt our band program or our music program. Obviously that's, of course lunch is important and, all that, but our music program is fundamental. So.
But I think then.
I'm sorry, if I may, tonight's presentation is strictly an informational that'll be brought back at the February 7th for actual approval to go to bid, not to approve the projects themselves that are listed, just at this point for bidding purposes. I would assume between now and February 7th, conversations will take place, and if it's determined that this is not a viable option, it can be removed from the agenda item on February 7th, this particular one, and it also can be removed at the time we collect bids and just reject that particular bid as it relates to that space. So there is time to make adjustments to this so that conversations can take place.
Well, could we remove it and then have the conversation and then put it back on instead of approving something that, I guess my concern is that I want to make sure that, that, you know, we're talking about improving communication in our culture. I want to make sure that we're communicating with each other and that people are feeling heard and that we're collaborating to come up with the best solutions, because obviously the best place to, you know, really understand what our students need in terms of a band space would be to talk to the music department before making a decision like this. And obviously communicating with, you know, our principal and other administrators that are running the lunchroom, and have that conversation, and then try and come up with a plan that possibly works for everyone, and then really consider, you know, if we have to sacrifice certain things, what would those things be, versus just kind of, you know, coming in with this, you know, doing a bid without any of those considerations. Because, I mean, how much is it to just get bids? It's nothing, right?
Well, between now and February 7th, there is no additional cost. So leaving it as an informational item today and then making a decision whether to remove it on February 7th, I think is an option we can consider at that time.
Wait, so, sorry, say that one more time.
Tonight is just informational.
Right.
So I would come back February 7th typically in a normal situation and ask for approval to go to bid. And between now and February 7th, if it's determined it's not an option that could work for Huntley Middle School in the band program, then it can be not included in the approval for the request to bid on February 7th. Because between now and February 7th, there's nothing that would happen from my end.
Right,
It's strictly
just for everyone.
conversations that would happen at a building level.
Yeah, then definitely, if this is, you know, this list will be coming back. I think that that's important. And if there's anything else on this list that, you know, that we're not having communication about, or that people are feeling like this is not a good idea, and, you know, there's not communication between admin and staff and our programs and admin, you know, I think that's really critical that we're doing that. So I appreciate the music department coming and bringing this issue up. And, you know, that's how we solve problems in a way that's beneficial, so.
Any other questions for Tammy? So consensus to bring this back on February 7th
Yes.
Yes.
with more information.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Subject D is the discipline reduction plan. This is information and action. Kyle Gertis.
All right. Good evening. The school district every year uploads student data to the State Board of Education. That gives the State Board of Education an opportunity to compare districts in a number of ways, either with each other on progress towards their own internal goals or plans. One of these such plans would be a look at how many districts in the state of Illinois fall within the top 20% in their exclusionary discipline. And so what that exclusionary discipline would mean, expulsions or out-of-school suspensions. It does not count in-school suspensions as part of that. And so over the last number of years, our district has been identified in the top 20% in the use of exclusionary disciplines as it relates to suspensions for all students, and disproportionality when it comes to suspending students who are African American. We have not been identified in the top 20% in the use of expulsions as exclusionary discipline. So as a result of that, what the State Board of Education asks districts to do is to kind of go through a process to try and identify the why behind this, why this is happening, and to put some things in place in order to address that, to ideally reduce the amount of exclusionary discipline that the district is applying. So what is attached to the board document is actually the State Board of Education's template that they give districts to work through. It's not necessarily required that we use this, but it's a pretty sound yet simple document to help guide teams. So what we did, myself and several other administrators, either at the building level or in the district level, got together because when we were having discussions around this, it's a lot of work that's been ongoing for the last couple of years. This isn't necessarily new news to us. And so over the last couple of years, we've done quite a bit to kind of start laying the foundation or addressing some of these things specifically. So what we did is we got together and we compiled
kind of a 30,000-foot overview of what are the things that we've done over the last 2 school years to kind of address the need that we're seeing. Part of that has to do with work in regards to equity and inclusion. So there's a section in the plan that talks a lot of the work that Ms. Parker and her team and many other individuals have done since she came on board as our director of DEI. A big piece of that includes professional learning and a PLC amongst administration, which is ongoing. In addition, Ms. Parker has kind of led our review of the parent-student handbook, which resulted in some substantial changes. In addition to that, we looked at what's our potential action plan in other areas to address the exclusionary discipline. We looked at not only the Social Justice Committee and kind of their review of our diversity plan and the recommendations that they brought to the board, one of which was to hire somebody to oversee, to be our director of DEI. Some of the other work that has been ongoing, as you know, is our Student Code of Conduct, which was developed throughout the year last year and is now in its implementation this year. Part of the Student Code of Conduct, it not only provides some expectations of what potential consequences could be for student misconduct, but it really also kind of involves a lot of restorative practices and a commitment to that, as well as building out supports for students that need them through our multi-tiered systems of supports. And then kind of the last piece there is, as you all remember, we came to you last spring and asked for some additional staff to address the needs that we were seeing in our buildings, part of which was the administrative positions that were added, specifically in student services, but also a lot of kind of directly impacting staff that directly impact students, so your school-based mental health clinicians. And so part of our plan to address exclusionary discipline was to provide more access to school-based mental health clinicians that can help support students. And so that is kind of the high-level overview of our discipline improvement plan that we plan on submitting to the state this month. It's not necessarily a finished product. It's just kind of reporting to the state what we're currently doing. But we also need to provide a progress update or a progress monitoring update to the state sometime during the next calendar year. Hopefully our district is out of the top 20% in the state at that point in time and no further action will be needed. But if not, then we go back to the drawing board and we look at what things we're doing, either things that we're continuing to do or kind of new things that can be incorporated into our plan. In terms of goals, we really looked at our strategic plan. So we already have a couple of goals in there. One is to reduce the number of students receiving office discipline referrals by 10%. The other goal is to reduce the disproportionality of out-of-school suspensions among Black students. And so we feel like those goals would be good measures for just our overall reduction in exclusionary discipline and something that we're already monitoring and tracking. So with that, we do have to submit this plan to the State Board of Education by February 1st. Another requirement is that it's posted on our district website. And therefore, the request for tonight is to have this as an information and action item since we don't have another school board meeting prior to February 1st. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
So the where is the plan? It's not, because I don't see it attached.
There should be a cover sheet and then another document that is attached to the agenda item.
I saw that. This one, right?
Yeah, the second one has the Illinois State Board of Education on it at the first page.
This the template.
Yeah.
It just says here to link to the district's website where plan is posted.
Yeah, that is
So that's the entire.
to be determined. Once the plan is approved by the board,
Gotcha,
then I'll
okay.
work with Ms. Elliott to kind of identify a place that it's accessible for the community.
And we're not using this rubric.
There's actually not a rubric. There's a kind of a flow chart that is to guide teams to kind of work through the problems, the kind of analysis process. What I can say is that these are things that we've been doing as a district over the last couple of years. So it's not like we had to sit down and start from scratch. It really is kind of taking the work that we've already done and just providing a little bit of more of a narrative in a more formalized plan. And I apologize. There is another rubric that was mentioned, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Provider Evaluation Tool.
Yeah, that's the one I'm looking at right
Yeah,
now.
sorry.
That's
I forgot
okay.
that was
No, I
embedded
just
in
wanted to
there.
be clear, because, go ahead.
We are not currently using that tool.
Mhm.
Ms. Parker and I sat down and we looked at it together, and we think it's something that might be beneficial for us to consider moving forward, but as of this point in time, we have not utilized it.
So what evaluation tool are we using?
The evaluation tool for exclusionary discipline?
Well, like, I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion, this, like, we have this are we using, like, how are we evaluating that aspect?
Please.
Just like with our,
Previously, we didn't have a dedicated department, but the social justice leadership team is developing equity framework with equity levels in that. When we saw the students, and we know we're going through this process, we said, oh, wow, this is a cool tool.
Yeah.
We've never seen it before, probably because we didn't have dedicated staff in this area.
so, okay, so you're essentially developing this in the social justice
Leadership
committee
team, yes.
and leadership team, okay. And you're using this existing tool as like a framework guideline, or?
So we're using equity frameworks from several organizations. Most equity frameworks are city-based. So we are using some of the larger districts who have equity frameworks such as Proctor and Chicago. And then we would like to include this tool in our equity framework because it does provide that level.
Kyle, they look at this by calendar years and not school years?
Yeah, so it is looked at by a calendar year, which is interesting because most everything is like a 21 to 22.
Right.
So I don't honestly know the reason for that, except it could be of how we report information to the state is my only guess, but I really don't know.
So your goals will run through the end of this year, and then with the numbers that are uploaded, you'll see we'll see that decrease and be under 20, hopefully. is the goal.
That is the hope.
Okay.
The goals that we actually have are 3-year goals for our strategic plan. So if we achieve 10% this year, that'd be great. But we also know that, this is something in general we're working at over the next couple of years.
Any other questions? So it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the discipline improvement plan to be submitted to the Illinois State Board of Education by February 1st, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second?
Roll call, please.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Amanda Hart,
Yes.
Timothy Davis,
Yes.
Sam Aldridge.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Subject E is DeKalb High School, new course materials proposal for the advanced placement human geography, and this is informational. Sarah Montgomery.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming us back to talk about this time about AP materials. We started the journey last year to look at new materials. Ours are 8 years old. They're aging. So I'd like to welcome Betsy Zimmerman and Cody Billick, who will lead the presentation for the new materials for AP Human Geography. And is it in a tab?
Cody and I got started on this over the summer. I started in July, and one of the things that was waiting for me was the consideration of the new textbook. The textbook was last adopted in 2015, and the AP College Board recommends that every 10 years it is renewed and refreshed. We're a little ahead of that schedule, but that's because it's getting hard to replace the books as they have wear and tear on them. And we're finding that the tests are not really aligned to the way the students are learning now. So Cody pulled 3 textbooks that he was interested in, 3 curriculums. We reviewed them and made sure there was one that was not aligned to the AP College Board recommendations. So then we took the other 2 and Cody looked at those in depth, and he will present his findings to you now.
All right, good evening. Thanks for listening to this proposal. As Betsy said, our rationale here, our current text is very outdated. AP practice questions plus practice tests are also outdated for what the current test is asking students for. There's new maps and graphics within the new text that we've selected. and we were looking for a quality book with up-to-date information and essential skills. As Betsy also said, our selection process came with 2 other texts other than the one we did select, which was a Wiley text and an AMSCO text. I'm familiar with the AMSCO text because I did an ASPI curriculum course over 2 summers ago in which I was given this text, and I used it as a supplemental material last year, and that book was, I would say, more aligned for the college level. Not so much considering that our AP Human Geography course is for freshmen, the reading level, I believe, is just a little too high for them in that text. Same goes with the Wiley. The Wiley does not outline vocabulary as well as the Human Geography, the AP course does, as we selected. So our final choice was, sorry. Our final choice was the Hildebrandt Human Geography for the AP course. The vocabulary is integrated into the content, which when I mean that is that it's not just bolded in the text. There are also vocabulary boxes that explain to students what this word is, and also on the page how to apply it to a concept or a theory, a geographical theory, if you will. There are real-world comparisons as to the theories that we're learning. A lot of the theories in the previous book, like I said, are outdated because obviously our world is constantly changing. This book is up to date with contemporary information. There's included materials at no cost, no additional cost with this text. So it's complete coverage of the AP content. It is aligned with AP curriculum for human geography. Easy to use modules, presenting concepts and AP practice in 1 to 2 day lessons. And by that, I mean they give 3 to 5 AP exam practice questions at the end of every module. By module, I mean it's a chapter, for lack of a better term, but module is what the book uses. There's AP exam instruction, and most importantly, an AP exam practice test that is added at the end of the book that we do utilize every year. 1 day before the actual AP exam at the high school is taking a morning for our students to get a practice exam in, and this book provides one of those opportunities for our students. The other thing that is very nice for me, being selfish here, are the teacher resources. So this text does come with an online and physical teacher copy, which provides additional supplemental information for students, as well as other links to materials outside of the textbook that have to do with the AP Geography curriculum. What I'm proposing is 40 textbooks with online add-ons. I'm proposing 40 as a in-class text, considering I am the only AP Human Geography teacher with only 1 to 2 sections. Last year I had 2 sections, this year I have 1 section, hoping that grows a little bit. However, these books are not going to be used for individual distribution to students. These will be particularly placed in my classroom for students to use during the day if we are using them throughout the course. I do use other supplemental materials. It's not textbook all the time, but that's the reasoning for the 40 textbooks. If we look at cost here, those 40 textbooks, we have the numbers there. Below that is the Sapling Plus for Human Geography. That would be the online textbook, in which I think is important because it also has features like text-to-speech, which is very good for diverse learners. And it gives you those options, highlight options, copy options. It's very user-friendly, to say the least, in which students that may not prefer to write in pencil or pen can also take notes and add to, let's say, a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word document right from the text there in note-taking skills as that. As I said earlier, that free product below is the exam view test bank for Human Geography for the AP course. That is also a test bank of questions that would be similar to those seen on AP exams. So again, pre-exposing AP Human Geography students to what they will be seeing when they do take the AP exam in May. And the teacher edition with the online teacher is also included in that package.
This proposal did go to Curriculum Council in January, and it was approved by the Curriculum Council, so now we bring it to you tonight.
Any questions for us? Exciting times. If you saw the books, you'd be excited about this proposal. They look like they've gone through a war zone. And they're hard to find, like Ms.
really
Zimmerman said.
No questions?
Thank you so much.
Consensus
Thank you very
to,
much.
Thank you so much.
consensus to bring it back for action?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Okay, subject F is the DCTA LOA correction, middle school overload, and this is, information and action.
At the December 13th board meeting, we brought forward it's actually a letter of agreement, an LOA between DCTA and the district administration regarding middle school overloads. The current contract only speaks to high school overload, so this is in us trying to address staffing shortages and the ability to be flexible in what we're able to provide to our students. In the LOA, there was an error. The differential calculation or multiplier that's used for a full school year for the overload is 0.14. There's a reference in 0.9 section B about a semester. The one that you approved in December said 0.14, but because it's a semester, which is half of the year, it should be 0.07. So we're just bringing it back so that we can have the correct language and have the right document memorialized.
Any questions? It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the correct letter of agreement between DeKalb CUSD and DCTA regarding middle school overloads effective September 21st, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 And next
Thank you.
subject, oh,
No, I just said thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Subject G, policy revision, cell phone stipend policy 5:62, and this is on as information and action.
So in January of 2022, we brought forward the cell phone stipend policy. After we brought that, after the board approved that policy and it was shared with district staff, there were many questions about getting a district device versus using their personal device, specifically how it addresses potential FOIA requests. So we went back to the drawing board and determined what we could do for staff so that they felt supported, and we are now bringing it back and providing options to employees. So employees have the option to request a device through the district. The district has an account set up with our vendor where there's a specific number of or specific types of phones that are available and plans that we have negotiated prices for. So staff members that are eligible for a cell phone can request a device, or they can continue to use their personal device. Someone who wants to use their personal device would on a monthly basis get a reimbursement of $50. So this is an update to that policy, giving employees options.
Questions?
And it has been vetted by legal counsel.
How come it's information action?
It's an update to the policy, providing the options, and we're looking to make sure that staff are able to get their devices and or start their reimbursements.
I'm sorry, any other questions? It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the revised policy as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Subject H, staffing request, part-time, 4-hour floater cook, and this is informational. Cindy Carpenter, Armir Doka, and Mike Jemitz.
so we're looking at increasing the staffing for our cook position. Currently, I have the totals here in terms of how many cooks we do have in the district. We have 5 head cooks that work 8 hours per day, and various cooks, 10 in total positions that work various hours during the day. And we're looking to increase the 4-hour per day cooks from 3 positions we currently have to 4 positions. Well, the reason for this is a couple of things. Our meals have increased quite substantially since we've been on the community eligibility provision program, where we provide free meals to all students. So it really is just to have that extra manpower or woman power to take care of our students and to provide those meals. And also to have somebody that floats a little more. Right now, when we have staffing shortages, if somebody is out, in the past, pre-COVID, I always hate to say that, but it is the case, we used to have a list of sub-cooks we could call, and they would come and they would take care of business for us. Now that's very difficult to get, and if we feel it might be better to get a permanent position that's a 4-hour position each day, and that person can float between the various buildings to see where that need is. So basically having a permanent sub-cook to some extent. So we're really looking to increase that capacity within our cooking and within our kitchens as well. So, and this is a newly created position somewhat, because right now our cooks are in the DFSS, which is the DeKalb Federation of Support Staff Bargaining Unit, and cooks are usually in a labor grade 1. We would be putting this in a labor grade 2, so something that's a little bit higher, because we need the skill set of somebody to just float around and take care of various different buildings, which is similar to what happens at the custodial level as well. So being consistent with that in that particular contract. So the estimated annual cost of the change in the labor grade, as well as adding additional position, because right now we have 1 person that would be potentially floating as well. So there would be 2 in total. The new person and then another person is about $14,300 a year based on an annual basis for an entire fiscal year. And right now, we're just bringing this as informational, and if there's questions or if you need more information, we provide that at the next meeting.
Questions? Consensus to bring this back for action?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Subject I, staffing request 1.0 instructional assistant for DHS, and this is information and action. Kyle Gertis and Deetra Salas.
All right, good evening again. Due to an increased need for a student who receives special education services, the high school has identified that additional 1.0 FTE is needed in order to provide the right supports for a student. As a result of adding the additional FTE, we'll be able to continue to provide the services that are outlined in the IEP. The cost for this position ranges between $35,200 and $46,200, depending on the benefit package that the employee selects. Are there any questions?
No questions? It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the addition of a 1.0 instructional assistant for DeKalb High School due to the urgency to fill this position. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the additional FTE. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Samantha David,
Yes.
Sarah Walters,
Yes.
Ariel Owens,
Yes.
Amanda Hennis.
Yes.
And subject J, staffing request 1.0 instructional assistant for CRMS, also information and action with Deetra Salas and Kyle Gertis.
You're going to hear a very similar request. I will say, though, there was a typo on the agenda item. It's actually a 2.0 request for Clinton Rosette. So the difference there, when we look at the cost, would range from $70,400 to $92,400, depending on the benefit package. And again, this is to support a couple of students at the school that require services that need that additional adult with them.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. It is recommended that the Board of Education, and it is in the action, I see. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve 2 instructional assistant FTE for Clinton Rosette Middle School. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Subject K is DCTA program, course approve, salary schedule credit, professional relations committee minutes. And this is informational. Teacher Salas.
Attached are the minutes from our last PRC meeting. This is for DCTA members that are pursuing additional coursework, be it a program or individual courses. Attached is the minutes that includes the individuals and the courses that they're taking, bringing this forward for information and then coming back for approval at the next meeting. We meet 2 times a year, and this is one of our meetings.
Any questions? Consensus to bring this back for action?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Number 8, superintendent update, and we have the middle of the year state of the district.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. As we're getting ready to do the middle of the year State of the District, I'd like to do a couple of call-outs. First, I'd like to congratulate Dr. Trevita Redmond and Dr. Donna Larson to the new level of leadership. Congratulations, ladies. The next thing I'd like to make sure that I make a comment on is, as you may recall, at our last board meeting, we had a paraprofessional come to us in regards to some issues that were occurring in her building, and she had information to share. She had sent us an email previously to that, and there has been conversations with various groups in relation to the requests and to the issues that were brought up during that time. I believe Kyle and Lisa have or will have very shortly another meeting specifically with her and a group of other individuals to discuss this even further. We are looking to garner some recommendations and get more information from what they're seeing, what they're hearing, how we're able to assist in making improvements. So I just wanted to make sure that we informed everyone of where the status of that is. Do you want to add anything else? Is there anything else that we need to add to that?
I would just add that we did meet last week with that staff member, and it was a good conversation, got some ideas, and looking forward to kind of moving forward with that dialogue.
Thank you. Stand corrected. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to the ladies to my left. So Dr. Jessica Nall and Ms. Monica Parker to get us going on the middle of the year state of the district. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Good evening again. On behalf of the Strategic Planning Committee, I'd like to start by first thanking the school board for your continued support of our strategic plan and all of the strategies that we are implementing. Tonight, the directors and the assessment coordinator will present our evaluation of our progress towards the 4 priorities noted in our strategic plans. We will also present a middle of the year data update. Before we get into the data update, as you know, District 428 adopted, and we are in the infancy stage of implementation, the 5th month to be exact, of implementing our code of conduct and attempting to use more restorative practices. So we're going to start off the winter 22 data presentation with addressing the suspension data. I want to preface that the suspension data includes all suspension in school and out of school suspension data. And then we're going to go to the attendance data and to the assessment data. When you do look at the suspension data, I want you to be aware that we are in the process of calibrating our repercussions and addressing the gaps of implementation that inherently exist when you have different people deciding what discipline should modify students' behavior. So what happens often, and I do have a copy of the front page of a study to share with you all that you can look at. It was 100 pages, so I didn't want to flood you with it. But there are several studies going all the way back to 2015 that shows that you oftentimes will see an uptick in incidences, and that's because things are being addressed because you have a code of conduct, and the code of conduct says if this happens, you know, these are the stages that you can take to address this behavior. So You will also see that we are using more in-school remediation techniques to modify behavior. That will be evident in the slides as well. Okay? Thank you. Dr. Knopf.
So nice to be with you again. Thank you for having us here to talk about our data. As always, please feel free to stop me at any point if you have questions so that I can clarify. I know that because I live in the world of data, sometimes things that may not be readily obvious to people who don't, I can gloss over them. So please feel free to stop and ask me for any questions that you have. Also, it's nice to be in this room because there's lots of space to spread out and a podium, so I don't have to figure out what to do with my hands the whole time I'm standing up here, which I gotta tell you I really appreciate. So we are gonna start with our suspension data, and Andy Langlois helped pull all of this, which was super helpful because we kept going back and forth on the best way to present it. And this format was suggested by the Strategic Planning Committee, so I really appreciate that input. Essentially, this shows you the number of students who have been suspended at least one time. Because there are 840 in-school and out-of-school suspensions and only 448 students, you can figure out from that data that some of our students have been suspended more than once. But really what this shows is the vast majority of our students who have not been suspended at all across all of our levels. So the blue numbers, those larger blue bars represent students who have not been suspended at any point this year, and the smaller red bars are students who have been suspended at some point this year. Yeah, exactly, right. So I do think it's helpful to keep in mind, without adding too much conjecture on my part, that most of our students are doing what they're supposed to do almost all of the time. Andy Langlois very helpfully thought to change these slides so that they're a bit more muted, so you can, when you bounce back and forth between this year and last, it looks older because it's a faded number. So relatively similar across the board. These are last year's numbers. Again, this is in-school and out-of-school combined. This is the type of suspension that you see. I find this sort of interesting. We've got the number of students and the percentage of students that, if they were suspended at least once, were suspended out of school or were only suspended in school. And you'll note that I think what jumps out right away is that for elementary school students, it is actually more difficult or less likely to be suspended only in school. And I would argue that's because of the setup we have, where for our elementary schools, there just aren't people to supervise an in-school suspension, so those students generally have an out-of-school suspension if they're going to be suspended. Again, please stop me if there's any questions. These are the same numbers for last year, also relatively similar, although bouncing back and forth, you'll note that the high school appears from these slides to be making a concerted effort to keep students in the building. And I know Donna would tell us that that's because they're delivering services for those students where they can take tests and receive academic intervention, even if they're being suspended in school. This is the student suspension data as relates to our district demographics. I believe this is what Monica Nutt was referencing, that we still have a long way to go to make sure that our students are receiving equitable consequences for actions, something we're presenting not because we're proud of it, but because we want to make sure everyone's aware that we are keeping a close eye on it and working hard to correct that. Also, we took the time to disaggregate the data for not just race, but ethnicity. Because we have to report this information to the state, we gather the data based on the U.S. Census codes for race and ethnicity, which are outdated and need to be corrected. Yep, I can probably attest to that as well, because Hispanic and Latino is not looked at all in the U.S. Census. People who would otherwise identify as Hispanic or Latino have to instead choose a skin tone. So this is the way we prefer to look at our data as a district, so that we make sure that, to the extent that we can, we're disaggregating for all of our larger racial and ethnic groups. And this is last year, which you can tell because the colors are more muted. So relatively similar situation, and something that we're working hard to address. Here's our attendance data. The red bar is the district average, which is right about 88%. This is through January 1st, so this school year. So by school and then by grade. Again, just tell me to slow down if you need me to. We've started our assessment data with map growth, and I'd like to slow down here and just take a minute to thoroughly explain this and also to celebrate it a little bit. So the orange bars for all of those grades are that's representing the students who met the growth that MAP determined they would likely make from last winter to this winter. And those are not just selective endpoints chosen because we like them, but because MAP is designed to be a test that measures growth over the course of time, over a year, right? So it's You can look at it fall to winter, but the best and most accurate way to look at your map data is from one time period the previous year to the same time period this year. So we did winter to winter. So the orange bars are the percentage of students in those grades that met the growth map said someone at their level was likely to make. And all of those numbers are above 50. And please excuse the clumsiness of this analogy, but we're having a baby boom in my extended family, and I like the black numbers better because meeting your growth is sort of like being pregnant. You either are or aren't. So you either met your growth or you didn't, but you can't be close to pregnant or very pregnant, right? You either are or aren't. It's just like a light switch. I guess that's a less clumsy analogy. So the black bars actually demonstrate the extent to which our students grew, and it measures all of the growth, right? So students who came very close to meeting their growth goal are still included in that black bar, and our students who made a tremendous amount of growth, it gives us credit for that instead of just saying they did or didn't. And this number is the national growth percentile. So when we look at the 2020 norms and the amount that students in grade 3 were expected to grow, we are at the 82nd percentile, which is awesome. So if you lined up all of the classrooms across the country or of students who took MAP in 2020, we would be the 82nd. That's really good. That's awesome. Like 50 would be about halfway. So the fact that all of these numbers are as high as they are, I think speaks very highly to the amount of hard work that our staff members and our students are putting in every day. And you may not see that when we look at our MAP data broken down into those 4 groups. And you don't necessarily see all of that captured by those orange numbers, but those black numbers really are something that we should be excited about. So these are the math numbers for MAP, and these are the reading ones. But again, you'll see that every orange bar is above 50%, and that we really have some great growth going on in our reading scores as well. Does that make sense?
The national growth percentile, so for 8th grade is 77%.
Yes.
Tell me one more time.
Sure, I know it's confusing. So the conditional growth percentile is MAP looked at the 2020 norms,
Right.
and they said how much growth is normal. Like if you took the person that grew the least and the person that grew the most, like your height chart at the doctor, where would the 77th percentile be? That would be a relatively tall person, right?
Right.
So if you took the growth expected for a number of classrooms or districts or that number of students, we're in the 77th percentile. So we're growing a whole bunch.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes, so 50 would be average, the average expected growth,
Okay.
and this is across our district for that grade level.
We're doing even better in math.
Yeah, we are. I mean,
Yeah.
relatively speaking,
Yeah.
keep that in mind when you look at the breakdown of how people performed, that the math growth is really good, because we still have a long way to go to be where we want to be. But I do think that this is very important, that it's not just where we are right now, it's how fast we're getting to where it is we want to be. So hopefully that makes some sense. And again,
Yeah.
happy to go into greater detail, but I promise not to talk about pregnancy anymore. Okay, so here's our MAP reading, our English reading data. All of the slides will be set up in relatively the same way, so you'll have your overall grades 1 through 5, and then later on the middle school grades, and then the next slide will be over time. So the last several MAP testing periods. It may be a little bit confusing in that subheading. We only started testing in 1st grade this year. So for fall and winter of 22, that data includes 1st through 5th grade, but previous to this fall, we did not test 1st graders.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? And to go back just a little bit, that's why this starts with 3rd grade, because we don't have a growth score from winter over winter for last year's 1st graders who became 2nd graders because the 1st graders didn't take it last year. Okay, so this is longitudinal data. This is by grade level. And I'm sure you could probably figure this out on your own, but the younger the students were when we went to remote schooling, the more the impact seems to have been, especially on their reading scores. This is by race or ethnicity. And this is low income versus not low income. The indicator for how students pay for lunch is what we use to make that determination. I'll keep moving unless there are questions. This is our MAP reading assessment for Spanish, so just our 1 and 2-way dual language students would take this test. This is grades 1 through 5 district-wide. grades 2 through 5 or 1 through 5 over the last 5 testing periods for the same reasons I just mentioned. This is the low income versus not low income, relatively close together.
And this is, you said this is,
Spanish reading.
this includes dual language?
It's actually, yes,
One
it's
and two-way?
1 and 2-way dual language. It's only students who would be considered dual language. So students who are
Okay.
in monolingual classrooms wouldn't take the Spanish reading test.
And are these native Spanish speakers as well?
For grades 3 through 5, it would be only students who have a background in Spanish at home. We also give the test to our first and second grade students, and they are in 2-way dual language. So some of the students that took this test speak English at home, and some of the students who took this test speak Spanish at home, but only for grades 1 and 2. Next year, it'll be grades 1, 2, and 3, and that'll keep rolling up. So we're making sure to measure the proficiency in Spanish for all students who are in our 2-way dual language program, because we want to make sure that what we're doing is helping them build literacy in both languages.
Sure. I guess I'm just thinking of like our Spanish speaking students are primarily, what I'm trying to say, Spanish is their first language. They're represented.
They are. Keep in mind though that for some of our, even for our 1-way dual language students, they may be true bilinguals already. They may be Spanish dominant, but their literacy instruction has been mostly in English. I guess if they've been with us the entire time, that wouldn't be true. They would have been receiving instruction in literacy in both languages the entire time, but if they've moved in, or if they're newcomers. So it's difficult to make generalizations too much about and AJ, please jump in if you feel like I'm saying something that isn't accurate, but for our 1-way dual language students in particular, but for all dual language students, because they aren't a monolith, so it's difficult to say, this profile fits every kid. But what we can say about this data is fall of 22 is when we, for the first time, tested 2-way dual language students because of the age of students we test and the rolling up of the 2-way program. So students who were tested from spring of 22 and back would have only been 1-way dual language students for whom Spanish is spoken in the home.
Okay. And so it looks like there's like less proficiency as we get further along.
It is right, and I would hesitate to draw a direct line, right, because we don't have experimental groups, so I don't want to, I would interpret
Sure.
that in some ways to say perhaps it's because we're testing our younger students, because again, we wouldn't have tested first grade until fall of 22, and the idea of putting the first graders on the computer, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, but it's also when we would have started testing 2-way dual language students, because we didn't test any 2-way dual language students last year because first graders didn't take MAP at all. Now they do. So now we've got students who speak English at home who are a part of the 2-way dual language program who are taking the MAP reading test. What we expect to see is as the students continue to progress, we've got a multiplicative kind of exponential growth in literacy in both languages. And we know that when you're learning 2 languages and building literacy in both at the same time, sometimes it starts off a little slower, and then we see the benefit a little bit later on.
Sure. I guess my concern is just making sure that we're supporting students, or advocating for students if they're like, particularly like our students that are not, I don't want to say it the right way, but don't speak English as their native language or primary language, that whatever.
They're not getting lost in there.
Yeah, or not that necessarily that they're getting not that they're getting lost in
Yeah.
there, or that like, I don't know where AJ's at.
She's right there.
Oh, yeah. Look at that hair! I missed you. Beautiful. But no, just that you're receiving the support that you need to make sure
thank
that
you, yeah.
students are receiving the support.
I'm actually really pleased with this data. I thought the red would be a lot higher since we had the English background kids testing in Spanish, and they're doing really well.
That's great.
Yeah, that's not what the study shows is happening. Really good,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, good.
It is exciting, and I will say AJ does a particularly awesome job keeping track of the data, not just on MAP, but also using iStation and some of the other pieces that we have in place, so that we are tracking the data for literacy in both languages. That's a very heavy focus. So yeah, I get it. And thank you for your concern. I think that's one of our strengths is that we're trying to make sure that all of the students in that program are receiving whatever they need to be proficient in both languages, so they can. That's such a great skill to have going forward.
Yeah, most definitely. Thank you.
Yeah. So low income and not low income, pretty close on this one. The Fastbridge early reading assessments are the assessments that our kindergarten students take. So this is kindergarten only, kindergarten district-wide for letter names, letter sounds.
Do you know, okay, so that's percentile, so 50% of our students ideally should be green or blue.
I mean, ideally would be 100% of our students in blue, right? But yes, a normal distribution would be roughly,
Okay.
25,
So this
25,
shows
25,
us
25.
potentially kindergartners, okay, I think I
So
understand.
beginning of the year, kindergarten,
Yeah,
which is when they're just starting to learn how to read.
right,
So when
yeah.
they're recognizing. So this is, it's not too,
It doesn't necessarily
not-
reflect the,
right.
how well, yeah, okay. I think I understand. I don't know if I can form what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
It reflects more how they're kind of coming to us.
It does
Is
a
this
whole,
showing
yes.
growth? This isn't.
This is the winter score.
It is the winter score, okay.
It is, do I have longitudinal? I don't think I do. We are open to exploring other options that are not Fastbridge because this is purely a test where for 1 minute students look at a list of letters that are out of order and the teacher points to them and they have to say what letter it is.
Okay.
If you've tried to sit with a kindergarten student and get them to on demand give you information,
Yeah.
it is difficult. It's one of the reasons our kindergarten teachers prefer their kindergarten quarterly assessment because it's not timed. It is
It's what
as-
we have.
Right. As the data person, I have to say, like, we sort of have to use something normed that we have in place, and we're continuing to work through whether this is the best fit for our programs. But for right now, this is what we have, and this is how the numbers shake out.
Okay.
But yes, there's a lot of confounding factors for all of it. Again, I don't want to hand wave any of the data, and I think all of it's important to look at, but I am, I think how I feel about qualitative data as well as quantitative, so that's what I'll say about that.
but just to be clear, this is from the
Winter.
beginning of the year to now. So this is
This
where
is
our
just the
students
winter
are with
information.
whatever they, instruction and learning they've received over the course of the first semester.
Okay, yeah.
So letter sounds is another thing that we look at, and then Spanish letter sounds only for our two-way dual language students who are in kindergarten classes. So this would be Spanish letter sounds for students who speak English at home as well. So half of the students who speak English at home, half the students who speak Spanish at home. We ask them what letter sounds the Spanish, what sounds the letters make when you are speaking Spanish. There's a lot of overlap. Vowels not so much. So the numbers look the way they do for that one. Math assessments. So back to something that is easier to interpret, I think, than Fastbridge. This is grades 1 through 5 district-wide. Keep in mind as we're looking at these numbers that this is where we're seeing tremendous growth that we're very proud of. Math percentile groups over time. Math percentile groups by grade. Math percentile groups by race or ethnicity. Low income versus not low income. And these are the kindergarten assessments. So again, same group of kids, same type of assessment. This is number sequence. The numbers are a bit closer to what we would want to see. Number identification, similar to letter identification, you point to the number and ask them to say what it is. Here's our middle school data, our literacy assessments to start. Over time, by grade, by race or ethnicity, by free or reduced, by not free or reduced.
And then, so these percentiles, I guess, what would we compare this to, like a national percent, like what could we compare it to know,
Sure.
like we're looking at it,
So these are all, when the students get a national percentile based on their RIT score,
right?
and then we take a look at how many of our students in DeKalb fell in the top quartile, so the 76 to 99. So 29%, let's go to one that's not this.
So I guess this does compare those things.
It does,
within
yeah. 18%
So-
of our 8th graders are in the top 25%. So what Samantha was saying, I think, is if you had a distribution that reflected the entire country, it would be 25, 25, 25,
Right.
25.
Okay, got it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for everyone that looks like
That's
this,
helpful.
if it was the country as a whole, it would be broken up into 4 even chunks. because that's actually how the numbers are determined. And in DeKalb, we would love to move that direction and then do even better, right? For right now, this is where we are.
Thank you.
Move on, yeah?
That's really helpful, yeah.
Sure.
25, 25, 25.
Yeah, but by eighth grade, it's actually almost close to that, somewhat.
I think there's a lot to be excited about. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've been through these before. Here's the map reading Spanish. This is only our one-way dual language because we do not yet have two-way dual language at the middle school level. So the students taking this Spanish reading assessment speak Spanish at home. But as I know we've talked about in previous data presentations, students who have already passed the access test and have demonstrated that they have a level of proficiency in English are then no longer in this program.
So they wouldn't take this test.
Exactly. So when you think about the self-selecting group of students who may still be in our one-way dual language program, who may have been in our one-way dual language program from the time they were young, the students who had met a higher level of literacy aren't included in this data because they no longer take this test.
So how many students would this represent then, that are taking this test?
How many students remain in our middle school one-way dual language program?
We have about 75 in one way at Huntley and similar 75, 80 at Rosette.
Across all three grades.
That's between the three grade levels, 25 to 30 grade levels. There's also a lot of move-in, newcomers, students with interrupted formal education. It's not the monolith, not all of them have been here.
So forth.
Right.
It's a large number.
Yeah, yeah.
This is the longitudinal data. And again, you've got your 4 chunks. By grade level. And we don't do by race or ethnicity because it would be one bar, mostly. And this is free or reduced and not free or reduced. This is middle school math data. Longitudinal. By grade. By race or ethnicity. And by lunch status. Are there any questions about the map data before I move on to the high school data? I know it's a bit of a fast shuffle through all of this, but I feel like it may be better to take the time and look through it since it's publicly available to anyone who's watching at home and also for you. It's been presented in board doc rather than to go through it number by number. Obviously, some themes are that we have some work that we want to continue to do to make sure that students are accessing the curriculum and finding success equitably, both with regard to race and ethnicity and also socioeconomic status. Our SAT suite of assessments, remember that we took the PSAT 8-9 as well as the PSAT NMSQT in the fall for the first time for our freshmen and sophomores as an attempt to have more benchmarking data at the high school level. So we don't have longitudinal data for those grades because they historically haven't taken a fall test. So the performance of 9th grade students on the PSAT 8-9 in fall of 2022. The furthest left column is their total PSAT 8-9 percentages, similar to the MAP scores where if you took every student in the country, you'd have 4 equally divided groups, and this is where DeKalb students kind of shake out. EBRW is evidence-based reading and writing, so that's like an ELA score in the middle, and then math on the far right.
And that was the first time we've taken this one, you said?
They take a test from the College Board Suite of Assessments in the spring as the State of Illinois mandated test. They've never had to take one in the fall.
Okay.
So in the fall, we've previously just done the PSAT NMSQT for juniors, so that our juniors can then qualify for the National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, which is why it's such a long acronym. And we've added in the fall benchmarking assessments because we feel like there has been a little bit of a lack of this benchmarking data at the high school level. So we're trying to
remedy that.
Yeah, that's right. So performance of 9th grade students by race or ethnicity, by lunch status. You'll see I don't find any of it particularly surprising because these students came from our 8th grade where you would have seen similar comparisons. So we continue to work on these same things that we noticed with MAP scores. This is for 10th grade students on the PSAT NMSQT, so that's labeled incorrectly. I can change that. Their total score, their evidence-based reading and writing score, and their math scores. By race or ethnicity. And by lunch status. And then our 11th grade students who took the PSAT NMSQT this fall, total score, evidence-based reading and writing score, math score. By race or ethnicity. Socioeconomic status. And that's it. Happy to go backward if there are any specific questions on any of the data.
I think this data is helpful in terms of, really targeting goals. You know, and obviously those are the goals that we want to be addressing. We're using the stats, and typically all ships rise when you do that. So, those are.
Mm-hmm.
And so then a lot of this data has been used, at least last year, in creating building SIPs, school
Yes.
improvement
Yes.
plans.
That's a great point. Yep. Most of our elementary and middle school buildings have MAP data included as part of their plan. I'm excited because a lot of them have growth as their goals instead of just attainment.
Mhm.
Because, again, to return to the very beginning, we've got, we aren't where we want to be, but we're not going to get there without going through here, right? So unless we continue growing, we won't see our scores look the way we want them to. And those high black numbers and the high orange numbers demonstrate that while we still have a ways to go, we are doing things that are helping us get where we want to be and that are working for kids. We wouldn't, if we only had students who did not qualify for free and reduced lunch meeting their growth goals, you wouldn't see numbers this high.
So can I ask, the orange bars, having them over the 50%, does that in some way indicate that we are accelerating learning for students?
I think
for more of our students than not. Does that make sense?
It does.
Not that we obviously we want more meeting their growth goals, and then the black shows that even if it's not accelerated, they're making growth.
Right. So I think that's why I included both, because the orange ones are the numbers that we hear more often, that teachers are very familiar with, that buildings may be familiar with. What percentage of students grew as much as we expected them to? And obviously the higher the number, the better, but over 50% is, usually go, okay, we're making good progress here. But the black numbers really do reflect more. The student who grew 5 points when they were expected to grow 6 wouldn't count in the orange. And the student who grew 20 points when they were expected to grow 6 would only count as one student making their growth goal, whereas that's something we really should be celebrating. So hopefully that makes some sense. So I feel like the black bars are not just because they're real nice to look at, but I do think it's a much more reflective metric that if you took the 2020 norms, so not the students who took the test in real time, but the way it was normed in 2020, pre-pandemic, and how much students were expected to grow, or I'm sorry, the national growth percentile, so how much we grew compared to everyone else was growing at that point, right?
Yeah.
Those numbers are really good. That's something to be excited about.
Do you have the math goal or the math map from 2 through 8?
Sure. This one? So this is reading. You mean these numbers? This is 1 through 5, and then there's a separate one for 6 through 8.
So this is math percentile. This is 1 through 5. I'm just looking at I'm just looking at your goals, like how we aligned it, because it says 50% of the students in grades 2 through 8 met their math growth. Math goal from fall to winter. And then the goal would be 55% of students in grades 2 through 8 will meet their math growth. math goal from fall to winter?
That is the orange number. You want me to go back?
Yeah, but this is for math. Oh, and 51% of students in grades 2 through 8 will meet their math goal, reading goal from fall to winter.
Did you want me to go back to the orange and black?
Yeah, so just, I just wanna make sure we made sense.
Yes. So the students meeting their growth goal will be the orange.
Okay,
So for math, from grades 3 through 8, because again, we don't have second grader data because they didn't take it as first graders in the winter, but going forward we will, because we've moved it down to first grade. So you're at 59, 58, 51, 63, 60, 58. So for all except for fifth grade,
okay.
it's already above 55.
So then we probably need to adjust this.
I believe that's phrased as fall to winter.
So does that make
This is
sense then?
winter to
So
winter?
this is okay. So,
Which we can certainly look at the fall to winter. Winter to winter is the most accurate
okay.
because that's how math is designed, to go year to
Right.
year. Those are written fall to winter, I'm sure, so that within the course of the year we can say whether, so like for para and other things related to growth, we have to look at within one school year, so our hands are tied a little bit on that. The numbers are also good for fall to winter. I just don't want to conflate the two. That's not this slide.
Okay. So, I just wanna make sure this makes sense.
It does. That's the orange one.
Okay, okay. So 50% of students in grades 2 through 8 met their math from fall to winter.
So they're gonna be similar numbers, but not these exact numbers, because this is winter to winter. Yeah.
Well, I get that, I just wanna make sure that this is right, that we did this right. Do you know what I'm talking about, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. I don't know that we would change it in the middle of the year.
No, I'm not saying change it, I'm just saying wanna make sure these percentages are all right, so that we're.
So this one is from last year to this year in comparison.
Right, winter
Whereas
21,
the one,
winter
whereas the
22.
second one,
This one,
the second one was from the beginning of the year to now, from
Right.
the fall to the winter. So that's why they're not comparing to the same.
right, I just wanna make sure that we have that the percentages are right, so that we're basing it.
Sure. So from
the right-
last winter to this winter, this is, so our children in third grade, 59% of them grew in comparison to their colleagues, right?
Right.
For nationwide, we were at 82%.
Right, but you're.
No, I understand all that.
Right, okay.
My question is about your goal specifically for the whole district, making sure that our percentages are right in the goals, that's all.
Yeah,
Are they?
that's
my-
what we approved,
I know, that's, I just wanna make sure.
yes. Yes, they're right. I don't know how to
Is this-
answer.
I guess,
So the numbers that you have in front of you
Are
would have,
different.
would have reflected, I believe, the goal from the fall. So they aren't reflective of performance that actually took place. The
Right.
numbers on the screen are the performance that took place from winter to winter, the amount of growth that students made. So I believe that what you're looking at is accurate, but I
Okay.
don't think that you can compare it to what's on the screen because it's,
that's what I'm trying to, okay, I
Right.
wanna make sure that I just wanna make sure our percentages are right, you know?
Right.
Yeah, so we're right on the money, so we're focused on the right things, and
yes,
the right number.
I think so.
Okay.
I think that makes more sense, to focus on how much are we helping our students to grow, keeping in mind, we're not moving the goalposts, we want all of them to, absolutely leave here with all of the skills that they need to go do whatever they want to, as they choose, right? But in order to get there, measuring that growth, I think is a much better way to look at it than simply, did you leap over tall buildings and get into the blue?
The other thing I think, Jessica, that we might need to be cognizant of is the question of the growth that has occurred from the beginning of the year to middle of the year to where it will be at the end of the year. And I think that's more a question that Sarah is asking.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that our numbers are right, so that we're moving the needle like we want to.
Right.
So those at the end of the year, that data, you'll see that a little bit more comparatively at the end of the year data. Right now, we're just seeing,
Well,
showing.
you didn't do this yet, cause you haven't had a chance to do it, but I'm just wanna make sure we're baselining it from the right place.
Yes.
Okay. Great.
Are there any other questions I can help answer? If you think of any, then we'll come up with a way to get the answers to you. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, were there any other questions? No. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nall. Thank you. So we're gonna turn our
Thank you to all
attention.
the teachers and paras and everybody else
Oh,
who's doing
yeah,
a great job
absolutely.
making our kids are making it the way they're supposed to be. So thank you so much for that. Good work.
So we're gonna turn our attention now to the department middle of the year updates. I'm gonna ask the school board and any community members that wanna access it to review the combined priority longitudinal tracker sheet that's linked into the board docs. It makes for some really good reading if you are bored. It's amazing, actually. But we're not gonna go into it, but you can review that. I want us to remember that our strategic goals are based on a 3-year plan. So it is, we are going to accomplish those goals by the conclusion of 2025, okay? It is customary for our progress to fluctuate. I want you to keep that in mind. As we look at the done check marks, the thumbs up, the thumbs down. Again, thank you to Dr. Nall and all of the directors who make sure that those illustrations are there. It's a simple way for us to see what's happening, okay? I'm going to kick off the director's updates because I'm here. And I'm trying to see, is it here? So it's in your board docs, okay? Here. So school leaders, meaning all principals, assistant principals, and deans, have participated in anywhere between 6 to 8 clock hours of professional learning communities that have been focused on courageously identifying and addressing biases. We are going to continue those PLCs by leveraging our courage to attain excellence through equity. In addition to that, learning opportunity deans and assistant principals are also participating in culturally responsive discipline series because we do things based on data, and the data that was just shared, which is trend data. We've seen that at least since 2014. So it was not a surprise to us. That's why we have a plan that Kyle spoke of as well. And that is also why we know that we have a lot of new assistant principals, a lot of new deans, and it's imperative for us to make sure that we are facilitating that. We have increased our collaboration with community agencies, which directly supports our strategic priority number 2 and our goals number 1 and 3 of our diversity plan. It has actually increased tremendously this year. I think everyone is really itching to help us out because, for a few years, we weren't able to really have community agencies as part of our decision-making process. So we also had 5 successful community conversation events. The feedback from the events were shared in a previous board update. There were a lot of positive outcomes noted, and our focus going forward will be to establish affinity groups. Are there any questions about DEI director update? Perfect. I would like to state that Donna Larson will be speaking for the athletic director update when it's time for Peter Goff.
All right, I'm next because I made eye contact with Monica.
That'll teach you.
No, I was ready. Just want to hit a couple of high-level things within the world of student services. I think one of the biggest celebrations that we've had, and something that we were really happy to get back to, was kind of in the spirit of community engagement and getting our families into our buildings for an event. So in December, Student Services hosted a family night, and unfortunately we weren't able to be there because we had a board meeting, but over 100 families attended that night. It was at the high school, and it really was a mix of, we wanted to feed the community, have a dinner, but then there was some informational, we had ramp there, we had Project Search came and spoke, and then we just had a KSRA come, and so it was really just giving families some information. One of our hopes was there was a lot of networking that happened amongst families. That was something that actually came out of a community conversation, is families lean on each other for support. And then we had a Santa Claus and a sensory Santa, and then we also had like an Olaf character-ish. I don't know if I can say that, but I did. But it was tailored for students that might struggle with, going to see Santa for a various reason related to their disability. We really tried to make it as accessible as possible for them and their families. So that was something that we hope to continue with. Obviously, not necessarily around the holidays all the time, but ultimately we'd like to get to one a quarter, where we bring families in for different activities. The other thing that I want to highlight is work that I'll say it's going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of focus on SEL, and one of the things that we're doing while trying to address the immediate needs that we see on a day-to-day basis is taking time to go slow to review and revise our SEL plan. And so Sarah Bates, our social emotional learning coordinator, is leading that work. It's a committee of people. Some have been on a part of our SEL plan for a number of years, and we're going back to the basics. We're looking at what is our vision, what is our mission, and then from there really driving what our priorities are. I think a lot of the work that we're doing right now, kind of in parallel, is going to line up with where our ultimate SEL plan will be, which will be finished at the conclusion of this year, in anticipation of rolling it out for next year. So right now that's happening behind the scenes in a lot of committee work, but what you're probably going to see as we get into the second part of second semester and then in the summer is that's going to be front and center. Similar like what we did with the code of conduct, where we'll be getting feedback and input from a broader audience. Any questions about anything, but I just tried to hit a couple high-level things. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carl.
All right, technology update. So for strategic priority 1, our focus is on leveraging technology to increase student achievement. We've done that in a number of ways. First and foremost is our one-to-one implementation, and again, we're heading into our 10th year next year of being one-to-one and our 7th of being a Google reference district. So as we continue down that priority and achieving that, we are seeing our students being able to reach their potential through our equitable process of delivering Chromebooks and technology to them. We continue to fund and solve the digital divide / homework gap. So that is for our families that do not have internet access at home, which many of them are identified during registration at the beginning of the school year, and all of our families have been contacted for this school year that had indicated that they did not have access, and we have provided said access. So again, if we have families that are still in need of access, they email 121@d428.org. And that is the quickest way for us to go about assisting them. Also continuing our cybersecurity initiatives, we have made many changes in the department and following NIST standards as well as the NCSR nationwide cybersecurity review to expand our abilities to mitigate issues as they come up. For strategic priority 2, providing support based on the communications plan, we are making many steps forward with the assistance of Rita in making changes to both the social media as well as the front-facing district website. So there will be a lot more information coming on that, but everything is moving as it should. And from a fiscal standpoint with strategic priority 3, tying in many of these initiatives from one-to-one to the digital divide to cloud access security brokers, cybersecurity, but being fiscally minded behind all of it to assure that we're trying to take advantage of any sort of grants or funding opportunities to offset our costs as we can. And then for strategic priority 4, so providing support through the onboarding process. Again, the technology department and the HR departments are working cohesively to try to streamline and automate the onboarding process for new hires, and just make the employee process just that much faster. And that is the technology update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, it's like, where's Billy going? Teaching and learning is next. As you can see on our first slide, of course, we would start with rigorous instruction and developmentally appropriate practices and culturally responsive teaching and learning. So that's an area that we continue to work with our teacher leaders, our content managers, area coordinators to clarify expectation, make sure that there are commonality across different PLCs, provide professional development that will increase our fidelity to our best practices that we've identified. Also, of course, making sure that our instruction is standards aligned. Secondary team has been identifying gaps in supplementing existing materials, making sure that all of those essential standards are covered, and the elementary teams are revisiting curriculum maps and tying course materials to the standards more explicitly. Also, of course, keeping a keen focus on common summative assessments, and then common formative assessments to drive our data, which leads to the next one, which is data-driven decision-making using benchmarking data to drive our discussions about placement and interventions, making sure that we have small group instruction, making sure that our core is being enacted with fidelity, and still working to build a culture where instructional decisions are consistently based on data and looking at multiple data points. So we're not just looking at one and saying, here's the decision, what other factors do we need to take into consideration as we look at our whole student group, what's best to support them. And then with our professional learning communities, there have been some struggles with those as we list. The PLC time's been compromised due to the fact that some of the time has been taken out for additional GCN training, Human-X survey, feedback sessions, and then other professional development as necessary that we've needed to support either different grade levels or content areas. And we have targeted specific, role-specific professional development. We've done a variety of different ways to collect what are the needs of our staff, administering surveys, conducting walkthroughs to determine what those specific needs are. And then those needs are addressed by professional development opportunities through our content managers, the instructional coaches, or partnerships with other vendors and outside organizations. That's a high view.
Yeah, so any questions for Sarah before I go? No. So for number 2, we obviously want to increase our parental involvement and make sure that our families have voice and advocacy. So we continue to use our Title I monies. Actually, we are expected to use part of our Title I monies for parental involvement nights. So all our elementaries have been planning those, along with our middle school, have been doing those. We also have our PTOs, PTAs. I believe Little John is PTC. Next week, Little John will actually have a parental involvement. I believe it's next Thursday. We continue to develop educational opportunities for our students after school. So it's actually 6 out of our 8 elementaries now. It says 5 out of 8 elementaries are offering after-school tutoring through ESSA. Now Lincoln Elementary School joined us, not through ESSA, but through something we had talked about in the summer where we were waiting for that MOU with NIU and ISU. We finally got that going. So Lincoln actually, before being given that designation, was offering this after-school tutoring, or had a plan to offer after-school tutoring. And then last, the National Sex Education Standards that we're working with Safe Passage at the elementary level. For K2, 3 through 5, we are going to work with them in how to present the National Sex Education Standards that we have to follow, and working with Safe Passage on the right way to do that.
Then our last 2 are to use the district finances effectively to meet the needs of all of our students and staff, and providing resources that are equitable, educational, aligned with our goals, while also, of course, being fiscally responsible. When we take inventory of our current programming, like you saw tonight, what are the needs? What do we need to provide rich curriculum resources for students to provide them their next chapter of support as they leave us and spread their wings and fly. And we see that, through kindergarten through all the way through secondary. establishing a variety of methods, gathering information that allows us to provide that targeted professional development. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. And don't try reading and speaking at the same time. But when there's a need for having support outside, we gather that, and also using our content managers and our instructional coaches to provide supports, and also looking at what are our resources, what do we need to bring in, what are the gaps, and identifying those, making sure that our teachers have support and the resources that they need.
Sure. So for number 4, one huge thing that we've done within the TML department is we've now given our building principals the autonomy to be the leaders during PLCs. They know what the buildings need. With so much interrupted time within PLCs, we felt that they would be the most effective driving force within their buildings. So we wanted to make sure we gave them that autonomy. And also, as Sarah mentioned, DEI mentioned, student services mentioned, we are just, it's not a one-size-fits-all. So we are providing different professional development on different needs, right? Play-based learning is a huge thing that we got going on, initiative that we have going on right now. That Jill actually, back over there, our humanities manager, was able to provide some of our staff on Saturday. So, not just can't just thank Jill, but all our staff that came in on Saturday to be part of that. So that's a huge undertaking. And then I know Sarah Schaefer, our STEAM manager, she's been having Math Mondays to specifically work on strategies that teachers need help with within our new Envision Math. So those are just a couple ways that we're differentiating our professional development, because we know one size does not fit all.
Are you, or is there problem solving or collaborative problem solving being done to address how PLC times are being compromised for
So we're
like,
working
going forward?
Yeah,
I know
so-
it's been a process getting them.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah, so we're working with our building principals, and we got some global PD from Solution Trees to be able to figure out where their staff is at with implementation of PLCs, and to be able to provide them the PD that they need to be able to be implementing them the way we should with fidelity. However, the tough thing has been all these interruptions during our PLC time. So moving forward, I think I talked about it maybe the last board meeting. We asked the principals to come up with their ideal schedule based around student need and not our traveling specialists. So when Sarah said, what can we do to, as a school board, to help that new FTE that we may be requesting for additional specialists like music teachers, art teachers, PE teachers, to be able to not focus our schedules on where they are at on maybe on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but what our students really need on a daily basis. That's the support that we'll need moving forward to be able to do that. Because really, elementary has no team time like middle school has, nor does high school, I guess. But it would be very beneficial if our grade level teachers could get together on a daily basis and be able to look at their student data and respond to that student data.
And some of the challenges of secondary are, it's not uncommon for people to be split between several PLC groups. They're teaching different content areas, different grade levels. So we have helped, I know at the middle school, develop some schedules of if you're in this grade level or in this content area, meet at this time, that time. But at the end of the day, you can only divide the pie so many different ways, and there are only so many minutes when, we have some other things going on. So we're making progress, just not as much as we'd all like to see, and we hear the frustrations, understand the frustrations of our teachers. Because they're eager. They want to get in there, they want to talk about the data. They want to make sure that they're aligned in developing common assessment.
I appreciate your student-centeredness.
Sure. You're welcome.
That's really
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, human resources. We live in strategic priority 4, which is human capital recruitment, development, and retainment. So it's that time of year. it's time for recruiting. So spring recruitment fairs are starting to ramp up. We're getting registered, we're getting them on the calendar, and we're looking for opportunities to go out and recruit new staff to join our district. We are also continuing to build our relationships with our higher education partners, the colleges and universities, but also other organizations such as Golden Apple that does recruiting, that works to help us identify staff to join our team. We're doing continuous work on documenting our recruitment plan that includes scheduling the fairs, but also what other opportunities exist. We are now having regular meetings with our HR recruitment team that's represented throughout the district. We have a variety of people that attend those meetings, and they want to share their ideas and suggestions on how we can potentially recruit staff into the district. We have ongoing PD opportunities from various partners. ISB supports our mentoring programs for our new building principals. We are also in the process, we are scheduling PD for our FDAS office professional members to support them in the registration process and many other processes that affect all of our buildings. Continuing to support staff through the evaluation process. That's both administration and on the side of our employees that are receiving feedback currently. We have ongoing leadership opportunities to support development and decision-making in the administrative roles that our staff play. We have on-site monthly professional development opportunities and external opportunities, such as Courageous Principals that our second half of our administrators will be attending in February. And then we just have ongoing professional development opportunities happening district-wide and in the process of developing a handy-dandy staff handbook where it will answer whatever questions staff have about their employment here with the district. Any questions I can answer?
Thank you.
Hello, just a quick update from Facilities and Safety. In our first initiative, a lot of time for myself has been spent working with various departments and committees in regards to looking for opportunities for adding space to our district. And we have some proposals that will be coming forward in the near future, but a lot of time has been spent on putting all that together. In addition, the next thing we were focused on is more in the safety world. Jose DeQuez is in the audience as our safety manager. With hiring of him, he has been very busy meeting with staff and dealing with improvements throughout our safety security world. We have been reviewing our audit reports and making changes throughout the district in regards to recommendations from the safety audit from last spring. Those include a variety of things from facility improvements, whether it's door hardware, swipe systems, various things that we're considering and still moving forward with that will take quite a bit of time and capital to be able to get all of those completed to improve the safety measures we have in place. Radio improvements have been improvements to our radio systems. Training has been a huge part that we started out the year with our Safety Institute days, as well as some additional ALICE training that's taken place. And we're going to be looking forward to additional training and incorporating that into an onboarding process that JJ's been working on or will be working on in regards to making sure that as staff are coming on board, they're provided that same level of training and support in the safety security world. As it relates to facility use, another arm of our department, we hired an auditorium facility use manager, Joe Lifshitz, and he has jumped right in to understand what our auditoriums need, as well as looking to improve our facility use. That being an initiative so that we can expand on our community use of our buildings. We are looking at a different software program to be able to manage all of the facility use throughout the district, because as you can imagine with the district our size, we have a lot of requests internally and externally that have many steps to that. So he's working on that, as well as verifying that any fees that we do charge, that we are within the market and they are acceptable. Those will be reviewed, and any changes to the process and those fees will be considered and implemented over the summer months, because it's always better to bring the staff back in the fall. We're going to start something new. That's the best time to really do that across all of our districts, or all of our buildings, excuse me. I've already spoken about the Safety Institute days, but again, we'll be looking to expand on those throughout the upcoming year and into the next year. And with that is my update. Any questions?
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you, Tara. Thanks, Terry.
I think
Oh, there is, okay. We'll let Amir go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. For strategic priority number 2, we're really looking how to better communicate to a community and understanding school finance. So we do have a lot of financial information on our website, but how do we make it better understanding for the public to either locate or understand it? We're looking at some virtual workshops to do and kind of give a school finance 101. Additionally, we're looking at how our business office internet website can have a dashboard that is interactive and provide kind of a better, some key financial data and for the community to easily read it and to understand it. So we're looking for some user-friendly format. We have been working with our communication manager, Rita, to actively look for how others are doing it or how to better show this for the community, for the school finance work.
So
Can-
for,
yeah.
oh, are you done?
And then one more,
sorry.
and then to communicate how the district is providing relief to taxpayers. So even though we have done a lot to mitigate the property tax burden over the last few years, how do we communicate that better to the taxpayers? And again, being proactive and informing consistently to the public. So I don't know if you have something to that.
No, I agree. I mean, we do a really good job, I think, in the business office with the numbers and providing a lot of data, but then it's, okay, how do you really digest a lot of that information for those that aren't number savvy, which we live it every day, and it's to make it, a little easier for people to look at and understand on a maybe more of a higher level rather than the level of detail that we're so used to. So that's one of our goals, and working with Rita to help us do that as well. So thank you, Rita, for being here. That's probably a good thing, because we need a yin and a yang, so.
You've done a good job though, Cindy.
In terms of strategic priority number 3, the focus of that priority is really related to the ESSER funds, the secondary emergency relief funds, and kind of wanted to focus there on some of the celebrations with those dollars. We were able to use a big chunk of those funds, about $500,000 of those, to assist teachers and support staff directly in the classroom with a $1,000 allocation for each of those DCTA members, and they've been using those. We have I think a pretty good process in place to track those dollars appropriately if we ever did get it audited in terms of how we use those dollars. And there's been some great supports that have been used by the teachers, and so we're really excited that they were able to do that and be involved in that process and to purchase what they feel is needed in order to help their students. So another celebration is I'm glad that he's here right next to me as we do the smooth transition as I walk out to the sunset hopefully one of these days. But no, it's great to have Amir here, and we're going to be tag teaming quite a bit. You'll see us over the next few months as we go through that transition. And then I always like to talk this up too, because this is kind of related to our communications piece as well. And something that we've done consistently is receiving our Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association, as well as the Association of School Business Officials International. For the 12th consecutive year, we've received those from both of those organizations. So I know a lot of times we don't like to pat each other on the back, but I feel like it's a collective effort of the board, the business office, everybody in the room, because everybody's looking at finances really closely. And it's great to have that document, because there's a lot of good information there, but now we need to figure out how to put it in a way so people will want to read it, and it's not a 100+ page document, which it is, but trying to make it a little more readable and digestible for those folks. And that's it.
Any questions?
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And now Peter Goff. Oh.
All right. Good evening again. On behalf of Peter Goff, I have some exciting fall sports recaps that we can discuss tonight. One of the major themes that you'll find in his presentation that's really exciting to share as a celebration, mostly all of the program highlights was that our numbers are growing. So we're finding that our students are feeling more connected to school, our teams are filling,
there's that growth with our younger students, just excited to become a bard. So that was really exciting to see. So girls tennis team, one of the major season highlights was that the girls were able to pull off their first match of the season, and this is provided by our head coach Rachel Leifheit, who she is a first-year head coach as well. So both we had full JV and varsity teams for our tennis program this season. Our girls swim team, they had 20 girls on the team this year, and again the numbers keep growing. 5 new swimmers joined the team this year in this season. Our DeKalb golf team, a season highlight, Andrew Smith qualified for the sectional tournament as an individual. Again, numbers continue to rise through that program as well. And his mom is in the audience today too. So then our DeKalb football team, we went 6-4 with, again, another new talented coach that we have, second season. First team all DVC members. We had plenty of students there, as well as DVC honorable mention members as well. We also had all-state award winners. We had Nathan Horrid, who was an all-state honorable mention. DeKalb soccer, another growing program, and we were the Barb Cup champions this year, as well as we reached the regional championship match. So that's another great growing program that has been really working hard with their feeding programs as well. Boys and girls cross country teams. We had a great turnout and a great opportunity that 2 of our students, Riley Newport, placed 7th, and Jacob Barraza was 27th in the 3A state meet. And it was a very exciting meet. I actually got to attend that one. I've never been to one before, and you have to hustle. It was super exciting. It was a great turnout, and they did a really great job this season. Again, more growing numbers in that team as well. And our volleyball team, biggest yet, 55 athletes, even after we had to provide some cuts. So we did have another great, incredible turnout. First and second place tournament finishers. So that was really exciting to see. But as you can tell, even throughout all the presentations tonight, they're growing numbers, and just the excitement vertically from all of our programs. It's just been great to see our kids more connected to our programs and wanting to be there after school. Any questions? All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
Dr. Larson.
That concludes our update.
Okay. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. Do we want more?
That's okay. Are there any overall questions about the middle of the year state of the district? Not right now. Okay. With that, we will adjourn our meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? You second? All right, Sarah seconds. All in favor, aye?
Aye.